Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd, 25th of June 2013. Let's see some photos from Fayetteville, Arkansas. That is a rattlesnake master, uh, well known to experts and others in the wildflower interest category. There's a tiny insect on it. Now here's a tiny insect on a different species of native plant. Do you see the fuzzy way the feelers on that moth appear? That's how you know it's a moth. This is milkwort. It's also very wonderful wildflower all over Pinnacle Prairie, World Peace Wetland Prairie, many prairies that you might visit. That's the common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca. We're showing that this week again because next week we may not be able to get pictures of it because the flowers so quickly go past bloom, particularly when it's as dry as it is this week. So Asclepias syriacus. That's the, horsetail milkweed, some people are calling it, or world milkweed. It's Asclepias verticillata, and it's the smallest of the milkweed species you'll see in northwest Arkansas. And it seems rare. I don't think it's as rare as it appears. The reason is it's so small, hard to find in the grass. That's Mike Price. He was out with me on the prairie down at the end of, at Razorback Road and 15th Street. And we're looking at some beautiful Baptisia alba. That just means white wild indigo. And the notable thing there in some of these pictures, you saw the very important pollinators known as bumblebees. And that's a native wild rose, and you saw a tiny grasshopper nymph, a longhorn grasshopper nymph on it. This, again, we've got probably maybe the last week to be able to get good pictures of the purple milkweed, so we're featuring it a little bit this week again. And you see the structure is very similar to the other milkweed species, but the color is what makes them different. Maybe if we shot them all in black and white, you'd think they're all the same because they're not extremely difficult to sort out with color. Anyway, this is, of course, a yellow coneflower, and that one's right out on World Peace Wetland Prairie entry area, the Peace Circle Garden. Now you see a goldfinch, and it was eating seed. There it is, a little not zoomed up so close, and now this one, maybe I cropped to get this one, showing it on the thistle. And they love thistle seed. People buy thistle seed to put in feeders to feed goldfinches. So it's just nice to have your own thistles growing so that you can watch them feed there without having to buy the seeds. This is, of course, Asclepias tuberosa, the popular so-called butterfly weed. It is a milkweed species, and it's probably the best known for ordinary person that casually studies these things. They're, of course, another bumblebee on that milkweed. This is Penstemon digitalis at the entryway to World Peace Wetland Prairie. Photo today, of course. And it's possibly the last week I'll be able to get any pictures of it. I hope I'll have a few more weeks to get some of these. This is one of the Monarda species, bee balm, and there's one that's starting to develop, and they're interesting at all stages of development as a flower. And of course, everyone loves, it seems, they always comment about dragonflies, and that one's an interesting form because you see how black good part of the wings are, and then the opaque part, or the whatever, you can see through the end tips. And there's some more Monarda. That's I believe that's a different one from the one we saw before, but it also had a tiny insect on it. Until next time, this is Aubrey Shepherd asking you to do your part to help keep the water clean, the air pure, and the woods green. See ya. Hello, I'm Aubrey Shepherd. It's the 27th of June 2013. We don't have all that many pictures today, but let's start looking at them and talking about them a little bit. That's bee balm, or one of the Monarda plants. There are several that may be called bee balm, and they're all beautiful. And that's larkspur, and that's sort of white. It might be a little pinkish, but it's a lot different from the purple ones. That's a little native wildflower in the aster family, and it's got a little native insect on there, and it's probably hunting for other little insects to eat. There's a bumblebee on a non-native plant that's known as knapweed. This little bug was on an elderberry plant, and there it is on my thumb, up pretty close. And they're pretty harmless to human beings, but they do eat other insects. This is a milkwort. It's a beautiful tiny flower that grows. That one, particular one's on World Peace Wetland Prairie, but you find them on all the prairie areas, but you got to get down in look deep into the tall grass a lot of places, because they're easily hidden, so you don't just see them sticking up above the tall grass. Now that's at Razorback Road and 15th Street. We'll talk about that some more in a minute. That, of course, is a World Peace Wetland Prairie again. Dragonfly. And there's either a tiny bee, it's much smaller than a honeybee, or it might be a flower fly. Somebody said it was just a native bee. But flower flies, there are ways to tell the difference, and I won't argue about that one at this point. They're both important pollinators. There's a bumblebee, and you know, he's kind of got his nose buried up under that passion flower. That's passion flower in bloom. The one the bumblebee's on was one that dried up the previous day. And these things tend to bloom later in the day, and once you get past the middle of the day, you probably see a lot of them in bloom. Yesterday's blooms may not even be visible except as remnants. But passion flowers are very important, particularly for Gulf fritillary butterflies. They're caterpillars. Last year, I showed a lot of pictures of them. Okay, there's a purple coneflower with the bee balm or Monarda species growing around it. And the nice thing for me is always getting some flowers together and contrasting or similar coloration. This is a native wildflower, and it's in the coneflower, the yellow coneflower family, which is different from the echinacea, purple. And this is on the same root system, but you can see different stages of how these develop. And I like to see, that's what it's going to turn out to look like. That's one adjacent to it. Back to that Razorback Road and 15th Street, that came up at Planning Commission earlier this week on the, whatever it was, the week of the ends the 28th. And it was approved for development. And it did require a variance from the streamside ordinance, and the Planning Commission wisely required some changes in the plan to do less damage to the stream side. And at the last minute, they added an amendment also, not only to keep the parking out of that stream side area, the closest 25 feet or so, but also to utilize some of the native plants. I showed you some from that site a few days ago. There are quite a few native things growing there. The perennials that come up there are just spectacular, because, not because they're so rare you can't find some more somewhere, but because they persisted through the time when that was a pasture, and those things were eaten down, or at other times they made hay there, so they never got to bloom in many years. But so many of them come up now, even though it's been used as a parking lot for several years. I mean, for more than a decade, Razorback baseball and other sports. So until next time, this is Aubrey Shepherd asking you to do your part to help keep the water clean, the air pure, and the woods green. See you.